everybody. This is Bridget Cotelli with Scope. I'm joined today by Jean Spisaro, who's VP of Membership and Partnerships with DTRA, Jeff Smith, who's founder with the Innovation Network, and Van Crocker, founder of Agonist Health. They'll be all joining me next week, just over a week at Scope, where they'll be sharing some of the important work that they're doing to make sure that every patient who wants to be in a clinical trial is provided with that opportunity. Welcome, Jean, Jeff, Van.
Great to be here.
So, Jean, let me start with you. From your vantage point, working across multiple stakeholders, why are today's trial matching and recruitment approaches still falling short for patients?
The first reason I think and I know is that we're really not good at sharing data within our own organizations as well as across different stakeholders. There are fragmented systems with siloed data that certainly do not help us provide the type of access to quick entry into trials. If we can dismantle those barriers in a secure way, I think we have an opportunity to connect the right patients with the right trials. And in doing so, we really can develop an environment where we're not hindering patients' access. We're actually saving lives by expediting their access to clinical trials. That's going to take a change in thinking, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Great. Thanks, Jane. I think I just called you Jane. I mean, Jean. Sorry about that. So, Jeff, turning to you at Scope, you'll be talking about a possible shared gateway for accessible clinical trial information. You'll be talking about encouraging human trial navigators and shared standards. What have you learned so far, and what do you think we can learn from other industries who have built collaborative solutions to common challenges?
First of all, I want to say thank you. Okay, this is the time of year where everybody is posting about their excitement about the event you organize and getting ready to go to Florida. And so thank you for this time and thank you for the work you're doing. And we've done some homework to be worthy of you. So we, speaking broadly, done over 50 interviews, did an SCRS group, did a mini retreat in DC, a dive team in Westchester, culminating the beginnings of a plan and sharing the skeleton of that plan first with you at Scope. First of all, to answer your question, we all know it's not novel, it's not new, it's not even all that interesting, that it's way too hard to find a clinical trial. It is interesting why, and it is interesting what things are in the way, and it is interesting what things would need to be done to change that dynamic. There are various folks that have been talking about this for decades. So how come we want to wrestle with that? That'll be what the discussion is about. I will flag 4 initial areas really quickly that we know need to be addressed coming out of all these interviews. I want to have 50 things, but here are at least 4. Human beings. What's the role for a human navigator? Is there a human in the loop or even more engaged in that? We'll have Jen Miller from Yale who'll talk about the value of human beings, why that kind of stuff matters. Second, data information. What is the essential minimum data that could help a human being find a trial? Not everything that might be put on clinicaltrials.gov, not everything that might be put on Power or Trial Links or any of the other startups that are getting packed. I think is one you guys talked to recently that are getting started. What is the essential minimum data that could help a human being find a trial or help a navigator help somebody find a trial? Third, throughput. Is it enough to just build a platform and they will come? Or what new sources of participants could make it worth the investment? If you're going to do something that actually changes something, there's got to be a reason to change it. And then fourth and finally, and this is why I value Jean, so one of the reasons I value Jean so much, is collaboration. How important is that? We think it's really important. And what could be a structure for that collaboration that could unlock some greater throughput, that basic shared data, and empower human beings to do this stuff? We'll dig in on at least those 4 things.
Thanks. Yeah, Jean is the queen of collaboration, right? That's where this conversation started way back a few months ago. Thanks, Jeff. Van, a question for you. There have been many efforts to improve recruitment. There's so much technology and new solutions, and yet still a problem. Why do you think that is?
That's a great question, Bridget. And there is an amazing amount of great technology out there, some of it more than worthy of the awards it's won. But I think more in terms of where you apply that technology and whether it's applied properly. And I think in this situation, it's more important to look at the funnel underneath, as we call it, than the technology that is used to look down at that funnel. When I say funnel, I mean patient recruitment you can think of as a pool of people that you want to maximize. So what's getting into the funnel at the top? And you don't want that funnel to leak. Once someone is interested or qualified or being brought through the process or showing that they might end up being a great candidate, you want to lose them. You don't want to lose track of them or confuse them or alienate them or forget about them. And what we have now is a leaky funnel that's not large enough. And with all the technology in the world, if we don't solve those issues, we don't solve that progression, using some of the concepts that Jeff described earlier, a human navigator throughout the process, the right sources, the right data management at the beginning. If we don't do those things, we're either not going to have enough people to start with, or we're going to lose them in the middle, or both. Ask yourself, what would it take to get access to the 80+% of Americans that are never asked about clinical trials, even though a majority of those people are quite interested when you put the concept in front of them. If we don't make that top of that funnel large enough, we've missed a huge opportunity. And once we're passing people through, do we have the right people, the right data, the right interaction in place to make sure that we don't lose them? I think that's just as important. And there's plenty of technology to do that, but we have to get the foundation of that funnel properly set up first.
Yeah, thanks. True. So I guess just a question for you all coming up on Scope next week. For all the leaders that'll be there, from sponsors, sites, regulators, patient advocates, what role do you believe each needs to play to move this from discussion to action? Who is it for?
It's for every stakeholder across the ecosystem, which is why collaboration is going to be essential in the successful accomplishment of what we're trying to propose here, or what we are proposing here. Ethical democratization of data is essential for a timely, informed decision-making, and every single stakeholder has a piece of responsibility there. For the patient, they need their data. Much of the collaborative work that I've been involved with across several industry collaborations includes the creation of data models and data standards that will be essential for that timely sharing of data and making the decisions that are appropriate, including whether a patient is actually going to have access to a trial by design. That's going to take a concerted effort, but the work has already been done. The fundamentals are there, and we're at a tipping point where we have advancements in technology. The human empathetic elements are what's essential in harnessing the power of that digital technology, and it's the data. How we use the data, we use it with humility, with empathy and integrity. That's the only way we're going to move the needle here, and it's going to take each stakeholder who has something to win and something to lose to come to the table to do it. If we don't, we're not saving lives. We're impacting the quality of life, and that's something we all should be taking seriously. That's why.
Jeff, Van, anything to add to that?
Well, I'd say certainly, I think we keep the patient at the middle here most effectively if all the stakeholders that we're describing are brought to bear with that in mind. And there is, thankfully, a role for a broad swath of stakeholders in the clinical research field. Everything from sponsors to sites to regulators to patient groups. Everyone has to contribute in their own way. I come from a payer environment of all places. And I think payers need to step up and provide the right data and the right engagement to their membership so that we can get a better chance at a larger patient base, people who are never asked otherwise, and make that funnel larger. For every payer, there is a pharmacy. For every pharmacy, there's a PBM. And a lot of that data, a lot of those engagement points to membership are ways to get people into the process and have more patients involved. Jeff, do you want to talk about any of the other stakeholders?
Yeah, I guess I could talk about the two of you. So everybody, yes. But if I were trying to divide up everybody, I would use Jean as an example. So as a emblem of biopharma sponsors and consortia. And I think some of them will grapple with the question of, do humans matter? If they matter, what works best? And also, what can we learn from other industries? Our industry is not less important or less resourced than a bunch of those who have figured out how to find a house you want to buy or find a plane you want to fly? What can we learn about not what it took to build Expedia or what it took to build Zillow, but what in fact was done prior to that to build the MLS and the ATPCO and Sabre, the systems that enabled those platforms. So I think sponsors have a huge amount. I mean, they kind of rule the roost on this stuff. Pointing at Van and data heads, right? How might this actually work? Right? Not only can learn from those other industries, but how might it actually function? But then I want to finish with the human beings, not that are trying to navigate people to trials, but human beings who we hope their lives might be saved, or their lives might be slightly made better, or the people who are used as a marketing line when folks say, let's put the patients at the center, and that's left as a marketing line. So how can we actually use this as a way where some of the most trusted people, maybe the most trusted people in any of this show, are the patient groups, are people who have gone through these experiences and can speak from their own experience to help somebody else go through something be really scary. How could we have a system that in fact empowered some of those patient groups to become hubs in a system that built on what is already happening and human pathways of communication that are already natural right now? Those would be a few I'd clump together, and I'd kind of clump sites in that same thing. But Jean ought to finish us up.
You've got my mind going here, but I will say this. I despite all incentives for sponsors to think about this differently, not a lot has changed. Regulations internationally and globally have made it possible for us to find mechanisms to reduce burden on patients, sites, regulators, everyone in the system. And I don't narrow it to clinical research. I think it's the whole healthcare ecosystem in which clinical research has a space, and that what is going to allow that equity and access to patients to get into clinical trials wherever they seek their care. And I will also say that even with those competing priorities that we all face because of political pressures, the operational complexities that we have created are being observed by our investors. So I also talk about what's the sustainability of drug development, including clinical trials, including access to clinical trials as part of a care option. Environmental sustainability and governance practices are pushing us to make sure that we're doing things through collaboration, management of data, and our focus is supposed to be on access to medicines and ethical clinical trials. How can biopharmaceutical organizations, who are the number one customers for us, their patients, how can we not provide access in a way that removes those barriers and allows for a system that is sustainable and builds the trust necessary that's sorely lacking in the process of healthcare and clinical research? We will do innovation at one cost only. We accelerate innovation only at the speed of trust, and I see this as the biggest factor in tipping the scales for patients. Trusting each other to share data, right? And then trusting, if we can't trust each other to share our data in a way that helps patients, how will patients ever trust us?
Well said. And I'm definitely looking forward to continuing the conversation at Scope. Looking forward to seeing you all there in person. And thank you for your time today. Let's get more people supporting, more people involved, and make it happen.
Come and see the plan.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bridget. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.